Rita, it is looking like Donald Trump will win. That is certainly where things are heading at the moment. But the key thing is that the Kamala Harris campaign really has been a disaster, however you look at it. She is just a woeful candidate. Put all politics aside, just as a performing candidate, she is hopeless, I would say.
Oh, she is thoroughly hopeless, but we have seen a media campaign unlike anything I've ever seen in my life, where we had even media that had been critical of her up until her elevation to being the Democratic candidate completely do a 180, completely memory hole everything we know about this woman, not just as vice president, but her record before that, and present her as this visionary, confident, just capable leader who was going to turn things around. And for a while it seemed to be working, and that was, I think, surprising to a lot of people. But that media campaign has continued, but you cannot hide the real Kamala from the American public. Nor can you tell them to forget what they have known and experienced.
But also, James, I would argue that the wheels are coming off that media campaign. So you've had the Washington Post, for example, who've never before not endorsed a candidate, are now saying we're not going to endorse anyone.
There's been two big non-endorsements here this week. Number one, the Los Angeles Times has decided not to endorse anyone for president.
Traditional Democrat.
They're traditionally Democrats. They've endorsed every Democrat since Obama. They haven't endorsed a Republican since George W. Bush. Now, there's really interesting because the news is broken that the family that owns the LA Times is upset about Kamala Harris's stance on Gaza. She's not far left enough for them.
No.
So that's really interesting. Now, but the thing that has everybody in a complete meltdown in the media, and you can watch the Democrat media melting down here, is the Washington Post, where Jeff Bezos, the owner of that, well, everyone's now canceling their subscriptions to the Washington Post because they said, we're not going to take a stance on this presidential campaign. And all the hard left columnists, all the Jen Rubins, everybody there on the editorial page with Trump derangement syndrome have completely lost their minds over this.
In Australia, too, we had Peter Fitzsimons, Jane Caro, all the lefties on Twitter going, I'm cancelling my subscription to the Washington Post. I'm sure the Washington Post are very concerned about their subscriptions to inner city Sydney.
But to me, these non-endorsements, they're sort of a nothing burger, because the Washington Post, the LA Times, they have pushed this Democrat narrative relentlessly. They continue to do so. So just because they're not doing a formal endorsement,
exactly. And Rita,
really doesn't mean anything other than them pretending that
I mean, go to the New York Times now. There's an article in the New York Times right now which opens up, and this is a pro-Kamala argument, saying that when she was made vice president in 2020, she's looking at her intelligence briefings, and the first thing she noticed was gendered language and ordered a review into gendered language in intelligence reports. We will have a DEI administration if she wins. It's going to be a disaster.